Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you on a journey, not outward but inward, a journey towards something more powerful, more profound, and more fulfilling than anything the world can offer, a deeper connection with the Almighty. This connection isn't reserved for saints or mystics. It is available to each one of us every day through something beautifully simple yet deeply transformative, dialogue. Here are 5 key principles to help us learn this sacred dialogue. Number 1, make space for stillness. In a world where notifications constantly ping, screens glow late into the night, and our calendars are packed from dawn to dusk, stillness has become a rare luxury. We are surrounded by noise, not just the external sounds of traffic, chatter, and media, but also the internal noise of thoughts racing, worries piling up, and emotions swirling. Yet amidst this chaos, there is a quiet voice calling us inward, inviting us into a space beyond the noise, a space of stillness where the soul can breathe and the heart can hear. If we truly desire a deeper connection with the Almighty, we must first learn to make space for this stillness. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of peace. It is not about doing nothing, but about being fully present. In that presence, we begin to notice the subtle movements of our spirit, the soft nudges that go unnoticed in our rush. When we become still, we allow the dust of daily life to settle, and only then do we begin to see clearly. It is in this clarity that we start to perceive the divine, not as a distant concept, but as a real and present source of guidance, comfort, and strength. The act of creating stillness is a deliberate one. It doesn't just happen. It must be chosen again and again, and that choice often begins with setting boundaries. We must guard our time and attention with care. This might mean waking up a little earlier to sit in silence before the day begins. It might mean putting the phone on airplane mode for a while, or stepping outside into nature, where the only sounds are the rustling leaves and the singing birds. These small acts of separation from the noise of the world create room for a deeper presence. In the beginning, stillness can feel uncomfortable. For many of us, silence is foreign. We are so accustomed to being busy, to multitasking, to filling every moment with activity or distraction, that stopping feels unnatural. But this discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that we are finally confronting the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding. In stillness, the mask comes off. We come face to face with our thoughts, our fears, our longings, and even our pain. This is where the real conversation with the Almighty begins, not in the polished words we say when we're trying to sound spiritual, but in the raw, honest truth of our hearts. Stillness allows us to listen. We often think of prayer or connection with the divine as something that involves speaking, but any true dialogue involves listening just as much, if not more. The voice of the Almighty is not usually loud or dramatic. It doesn't often come with flashes of light or thunder from the sky. More often, it comes as a whisper, a quiet conviction, a sudden clarity, an unexpected peace. And to hear that whisper, we must first silence the shouting of the world. When we make space for stillness, we also begin to see how deeply we are already connected to the divine. We start to recognize the moments of grace in our day, the smile from a stranger, the timing of an event, the unexplainable peace during a storm. These are not coincidences. They are the gentle touch of the Almighty on our lives, but we only notice them when we are paying attention, when we are still enough to see. Creating a habit of stillness doesn't require a monastery or a retreat. It begins right where you are, a few moments each day, dedicated to simply sitting, breathing, and being aware of the presence of something greater. These moments add up. Over time, they transform the way we see the world and the way we respond to it. We become more grounded, more patient, more in tune with ourselves and with the divine. Our reactions soften, our clarity sharpens, and we begin to carry a quiet strength that nothing outside of us can shake. Stillness also teaches us trust. In the quiet, we are reminded that we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to control everything. We can release the burdens we carry and allow the Almighty to carry them with us. This surrender doesn't make us weaker, it frees us. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are supported by a love far greater than our own strength, and that assurance, that deep knowing, is one of the most powerful outcomes of true stillness. Ultimately, stillness is not an escape from life. It is preparation for it. It equips us to return to the noise not overwhelmed but anchored. It helps us navigate challenges not with panic, but with peace. And most importantly, it deepens our relationship with the one who waits for us in every quiet moment. So if you are seeking a deeper connection, don't look far. Just stop, breathe, listen. The divine is already near, closer than your next thought, quieter than your next breath, waiting for you in the stillness. Number 2, speak honestly, listen humbly. In any meaningful relationship, honesty and humility are essential. When we seek to deepen our connection with the Almighty, these qualities become even more vital. Speak honestly, listen humbly isn't just a suggestion, it's a pathway to real, transformative dialogue with the divine. It's about shedding pretense, opening our hearts fully, and being willing to receive, not just express. Speaking honestly means we stop trying to perform or impress, even in prayer. Many people unconsciously approach the Almighty as if they must say the right words, maintain a perfect tone, or present only the best version of themselves. But the Almighty already knows every thought, every emotion, every part of us, even the ones we try to hide. When we try to filter or polish our conversations, we're not hiding anything from Him. We're only distancing ourselves from our own truth. To speak honestly is to speak from the raw, unedited places within us. It's to say, I'm afraid, I'm tired, I don't understand, or even I'm angry. It's to bring our confusion, our questions, our hopes, and our doubts into the light. Nothing is too messy or too small to be shared. The more vulnerable we become in our dialogue with the divine, the more space we create for real healing and growth, because it is only when we speak truthfully that we begin to uncover the deeper layers of our own spirit, and it is there that the divine meets us most intimately. There's great power in giving ourselves permission to be fully ourselves in prayer. We often carry burdens silently, believing they're too trivial or too shameful to bring forward, but in doing so, we isolate ourselves even further. When we break that silence and speak honestly, we begin to experience the relief of being truly seen and heard. There's no need to hide. The one who created us already understands our struggles, and He is not shocked by our weaknesses. He is drawn to our sincerity. But the second half of this principle is just as important. We must also listen humbly. Dialogue is not a one-way street. After we pour our hearts out, after we've said all that we need to say, there comes a moment when we must pause and allow silence to speak. And in that silence, if we are humble, we begin to hear. Listening humbly requires patience. It's easy to speak, but far harder to wait for a response that may come in ways we don't expect. The divine doesn't always answer in words or through direct signs. Sometimes the response is a shift in our thoughts, a deep sense of peace, an insight that seems to appear out of nowhere, or a change in circumstances we didn't foresee. But to perceive these answers, we must be willing to listen with the ears of the heart, not with an attitude of demand, but with one of surrender. Humility in listening also means accepting that the answer might not be what we hoped for. It might not come on our timetable. Sometimes, what feels like silence is actually an invitation to trust more deeply, to keep going even without immediate clarity. This can be uncomfortable, especially when we crave certainty or resolution. But it is in those moments that faith grows. Real dialogue with the Almighty stretches us. It teaches us to accept the unknown, to rely not on our own understanding, but on a greater wisdom. When we listen humbly, we open ourselves to transformation. The divine may reveal truths we weren't ready to see, or challenge us to let go of things we've been clinging to. Humble listening doesn't mean passive waiting. It means active receptivity. It means saying, I'm open. I'm willing to hear even if it changes me, even if it calls me to do hard things. This kind of listening shapes us. It aligns our hearts with the will of something greater than ourselves, and in doing so, brings profound peace. Over time, the more we practice honest speaking and humble listening, the more natural the dialogue becomes. We begin to sense when we are being gently guided. We start to recognize moments of clarity as sacred. We develop a quiet confidence that we are not alone, that we are being heard and held by a presence greater than anything we face. This relationship, like any deep connection, grows with consistency. It is built in the quiet hours, in the whispered truths, in the willingness to be both real and receptive. We don't have to be perfect to approach the divine. We only have to be honest. We don't need all the answers. We only need the humility to listen. So speak as you are. Speak with your whole heart, your trembling thoughts, your uncertain hopes. Then listen, not just with your ears, but with your soul. The Almighty is not distant. He is near, attentive, and deeply engaged in the lives of those who seek Him sincerely. In every honest word and every humble silence, you are drawing closer. You are learning to truly connect. Number 3, bring your whole self. We live in a world that often teaches us to compartmentalize, to present the best parts of ourselves while hiding the rest. We're told to be strong, put together, and composed, especially when it comes to anything spiritual. But when it comes to building a genuine relationship with the Almighty, pretense has no place. There is no need to filter our emotions, edit our personalities, or present only our highlights. The divine does not ask for perfection. He asks for presence. To bring your whole self means to show up as you are, unfiltered, unedited, and fully human. This kind of openness begins with the courage to be real. Real with your emotions, your doubts, your hopes, and your flaws. It's easy to approach the divine with gratitude when things are going well, when your heart is full of clarity and peace. But life is not always that simple. Some days are messy, some thoughts are tangled, some feelings don't make sense. Bringing your whole self means you don't leave parts of you outside the door when you pray or reflect. You don't pretend to be calm when you're overwhelmed. You don't have to say you trust when you're full of fear. You simply bring it all. This kind of honesty creates space for true connection. Just like any meaningful relationship, closeness grows in vulnerability. When you're honest with the Almighty about where you are not where you wish you were, you create the foundation for healing, growth, and transformation. There's something powerful about being seen fully and still being loved. That's the gift the divine offers, but we can only receive it when we stop hiding. Bringing your whole self also means not dividing your life into spiritual and non-spiritual sections. It's easy to think that only certain moments, like when we're praying, reading, or doing something overtly religious, are worthy of the divine's presence. But in truth, every part of your life is sacred. Your work, your rest, your joy, your struggle, none of it is outside the scope of divine concern. The Almighty doesn't just want your quiet moments of devotion. He wants your whole story. He wants to walk with you through every conversation, every decision, every heartbeat. This includes the parts of you that you might feel ashamed of, your past mistakes, your regrets, your habits, your insecurities. It might feel easier to keep those hidden even from the divine, but the truth is they are already known. And they are not a barrier to connection. They are the very places where grace is most powerful. When you bring those pieces into the light, not only are you met with compassion instead of judgment, but you also begin to experience what it truly means to be accepted. Bringing your whole self also involves being honest about your questions. Many people are afraid to admit they have doubts or to wrestle with hard truths about life, faith, or purpose. But questions are not the enemy of faith. Suppressing them is. When you bring your questions into your relationship with the divine, you're not being disrespectful. You're being authentic. The divine is not intimidated by your confusion. He welcomes your search for understanding. In fact, the very act of questioning can deepen your faith, because it shows you're engaging, thinking, and seeking. And those who seek with sincerity are never turned away. In bringing your whole self, you're also bringing your dreams and desires. Not just the spiritual ones, but the ones rooted deep in your heart, the things you hope for, the goals that excite you, the visions that keep you awake at night. These too matter. You don't have to pretend that your ambitions are less important than your prayers. The divine who created you also placed those desires within you. Bringing them into your relationship with him turns your goals into shared dreams, guided by a higher purpose. Importantly, bringing your whole self doesn't mean staying stuck in every emotion or limitation. It means starting from where you are, not where you think you should be. Growth doesn't begin with a mask. It begins with truth. When you come honestly, with your anxiety, your anger, your joy, your fatigue, you allow the divine to meet you there and lead you forward. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about being willing to show up and say, "This is me today." That simple act of showing up with authenticity is a form of trust. It's an invitation for the divine to move through every corner of your life. Over time, this practice of showing up fully builds an unshakable connection. It creates a dialogue that is alive, raw, and real. You stop feeling like you have to perform your faith and start living it. You begin to experience the comfort of being fully known and still fully loved. And from that place, you grow, not just spiritually, but emotionally, mentally, and relationally. So bring your joy, bring your exhaustion, bring your ambition, your fear, your confidence, your insecurity. Bring your laughter and your grief, bring your silence and your noise, bring all of it. The Almighty isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for you, the real you, because that's the only version that can be truly loved. That's the only version that can be truly transformed. Number 4, turn everyday moments into sacred ones. In the pursuit of a deeper connection with the Almighty, many people imagine they must seek out extraordinary moments or set aside special rituals in order to feel close to the divine. They picture mountaintops, silent retreats, or long hours of prayer in solitude. While those experiences can be deeply meaningful, they are not the only path to sacredness. In truth, the divine is not confined to certain times or places. The real invitation is to turn ordinary, everyday moments into sacred ones, not by changing the moment itself, but by changing the awareness we bring to it. Every day is filled with small, seemingly insignificant moments. Making your bed, sipping your morning coffee, walking to work, doing the dishes, waiting in traffic. These are often seen as mundane or routine, but the sacred is not reserved for the extraordinary. The sacred is present in the ordinary when we bring our full attention to it and open our hearts to the presence of something greater. When we approach these simple moments with mindfulness and gratitude, they transform into opportunities for connection with the divine. One of the most powerful ways to bring sacredness into the everyday is through intentional awareness. This means learning to pause and truly be present in what you are doing, no matter how simple it may seem. Take, for example, something as routine as preparing a meal. Most of the time, it's done quickly, with our minds already on the next task. But what if instead you approached it with gratitude, thanking the Creator for the food, for the hands that harvested it, for the strength to cook it? Suddenly, the task becomes more than a chore. It becomes a form of prayer, a moment of divine recognition. Gratitude is a doorway into the sacred. When we begin to thank the Almighty not only for major blessings, but also for the smallest gifts, a breath of fresh air, a kind smile, a moment of rest, we shift our mindset from scarcity to abundance. We start to realize that we are constantly surrounded by grace. This shift in perspective turns the ordinary into holy ground. The more we practice this, the more we start to see that we don't need to escape daily life to find the divine. We need only to wake up to His presence in it. Another way to turn everyday moments into sacred ones is by offering them up as acts of devotion. You don't need a formal prayer to do this. Simply start the day by saying, "Whatever I do today, let it be for something greater than myself." Whether you're working, studying, parenting, or resting, everything becomes an offering. Even your struggles and frustrations can be given to the divine. When faced with challenges, say quietly, "I offer this too." This kind of conscious surrender doesn't remove the difficulty, but it brings purpose to the pain. It reminds you that nothing is wasted when it's placed in the hands of the Almighty. Conversations, too, can be sacred. So often we speak without really listening, or we talk just to fill silence. But when we bring presence and compassion into our interactions, when we choose words that heal instead of hurt, we reflect the divine within us. A word of encouragement, a moment of forgiveness, or simply listening without judgment. These are sacred acts that can change someone's entire day. The divine is not only in the sky above, but in the eyes of those we meet. When we treat others with dignity and kindness, we are engaging in a holy exchange. Sacredness can also be found in the way we respond to moments of stillness and waiting. In those pockets of time that we often fill with distractions, like standing in line, sitting on a bus, or waiting for someone, we have the chance to pause and check in with our hearts. Instead of reaching for a phone or complaining about the delay, we can use that moment to breathe deeply, say a short prayer, or simply remind ourselves, I am not alone. These small practices, done consistently, invite a sense of peace that carries into the rest of the day. Turning everyday moments into sacred ones does not require a change in schedule, only a change in intention. It asks us to slow down, pay attention, and invite the divine into our daily rhythm. Over time, this practice creates a life that feels less fragmented and more whole. We begin to understand that there is no separation between the spiritual and the practical. Folding laundry becomes an act of love. Walking becomes a form of meditation. Even resting becomes a sacred act of renewal when we acknowledge that our bodies, too, are a gift. Living this way doesn't make life easier, but it makes it more meaningful. It brings depth to our joys and comfort to our sorrows. It reminds us that the Almighty is not only with us in moments of worship, but in every breath we take. We don't have to wait for the perfect moment to connect. The perfect moment is the one we're already in, if we're willing to see it with sacred eyes. So the next time you find yourself in an ordinary moment, pause, breathe, offer it, and know that even there, especially there, the divine is near. Number 5, let trust replace control. There is something deep within human nature that craves control. We like to plan, predict, manage, and fix. We cling to schedules, routines, and outcomes because they give us a sense of security. Control feels safe. It feels responsible. But in our quest to manage everything, we often find ourselves carrying a weight we were never meant to bear. Life, as we all come to learn, is unpredictable. Circumstances change without warning. People surprise us, plans fall apart, and in those moments when our grip on control begins to slip, we're left anxious, frustrated, and sometimes even hopeless. That is when the invitation arises, let trust replace control. Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It means choosing to live from a deeper place, a place rooted not in fear but in faith. Trust is not passive. It is not careless. Trust is active surrender. It is the brave decision to believe that even when things don't go according to our plans, they are still unfolding according to a greater plan. It's believing that the divine is not only aware of what we're facing, but already working in it for our good, even when we don't understand how. There is immense freedom in surrender. When we stop trying to manipulate every detail of our lives, we make room for peace. We learn to exhale. We learn to be present. The pressure to always be in control creates constant tension. It feeds anxiety and steals joy. But when we replace that need for control with trust in the Almighty, we start to walk lighter. We begin to understand that we don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to fix everything right now. We simply have to take the next faithful step and let the rest unfold. This is not easy, especially in a world that praises productivity, independence, and self-sufficiency. Choosing trust can feel countercultural. Control feels powerful, trust feels vulnerable. But vulnerability is where real strength begins. When we admit that we are not in control, and never were, we allow the divine to meet us in our weakness. We stop striving and start receiving. We stop pushing and start listening. We move from fear to faith, from worry to wonder. Many of us hold tightly to control because we fear what might happen if we don't. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We overthink and overplan. We try to shield ourselves and those we love from pain. But the truth is, no amount of control can guarantee safety. Life is full of unknowns, And ironically, the tighter we try to hold things together, the more exhausted and disconnected we become. Trust invites us to a different way. It whispers, "You don't have to carry this alone." Trusting the divine means believing that even in the silence, He is working. Even in the delay, there is purpose. Even in the loss, there is still love. It's believing that what feels like a detour might actually be the exact path we need, that the doors that close are protecting us, and the ones that open are leading us to something greater than we imagined. It's understanding that timing is sacred, and that just because we can't see the whole picture doesn't mean there isn't one. One of the most powerful shifts happens when we stop asking, "How can I control this?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me about trust?" In every situation where control fails us, trust is waiting to rise. In every plan that falls apart, there is a deeper invitation to surrender. When we stop trying to force outcomes, we start to notice the beauty in the process. We learn patience. We grow in faith. We begin to rely not on our limited perspective, but on infinite wisdom. This shift doesn't happen all at once. It is a daily choice, sometimes even a moment by moment one. There will be days when trust feels natural and days when fear tries to take over again. But each time we choose to let go and believe that the divine is with us, guiding us, we become more grounded, more at peace, more aligned with the flow of life rather than always fighting against it. Letting trust replace control doesn't mean life becomes perfect. Challenges will still come, but it means we are no longer facing them with clenched fists. We face them with open hands, open hearts, and a quiet confidence that we are not alone, that we are being led, that even when we don't understand, we are still being held. In this kind of trust, there is rest. There is joy, there is freedom, and most importantly, there is connection. A deep, unshakable bond with the one who sees the whole picture, who holds every outcome, and who never fails. So loosen your grip. Exhale the pressure and let trust take its rightful place. Life becomes infinitely more beautiful when we stop trying to control it and start learning to trust the one who holds it all. In closing, know this: learning to dialogue with the Almighty isn't about mastering a technique. It's about opening your heart, showing up consistently, and embracing the invisible bond that connects us to something greater than ourselves. This connection, once formed, can transform not just your faith, but your entire life. Start the conversation today. The Almighty is always listening. Thank you.